Thank you so much, Luis. It's a thrill to be able to welcome you. Traveler away from our like really
suffering because it's not my language, and being watched for many people, and so this is not a comfort zone.
I can tell you, I'm not that comfortable either. But the nice thing is if you just ignore all of them, it's just a conversation between the two of us. It's like a laugh track we're playing. And I'd love you just to share a little bit about Letrus. You showed us, you gave us your pitch today, which was unbelievable. Like literally mind-blowing, the impact you're having on students. It started.
Well, I think when I was a little student, it's not about literacy at the beginning, but I had a teacher, a sports teacher, physical education, who led us, I was 7 years old, he let us create games. So think about it, create it, and then make the rules and practice. And that was mind-blowing because it's so much fun. And on that point, I realized that a freedom of thinking, choosing, and this autonomy during the process, it's all about education. And as I was growing older, I think we all know this. We don't have freedom, and we don't have autonomy, and we follow rules. So when I was on the university, I wasn't clear that I wanted to be a teacher. I was in economy, but in university, the freedom comes back to us. So we have experience, and I decided to become a teacher because I'm a shy person, and I like education. And then I want to teach something. So I decided, I don't know why, but I decided to teach about writing skills. So the first time I stepped on a classroom as a teacher, and then I see the students. Wow.
Usually when you are really shy, the first thing you do is jump on stage and be a professor. Is that how you cure being shy?
I don't know. But it makes sense. It makes sense.
You have to try that sometime.
And then I drop out economy at that time, and I want to be a teacher, a language teacher. I really think literacy is very strategic. It's something that it is there to all subjects, to knowledge and to social behavior too. So that was it.
Yeah.
From them, can I continue speaking?
Yeah. I mean, you're on a roll. Take it away.
When I was almost graduating, and we have to have experience as teachers, and then I went to one school that the fifth graders, 10, 11 years old, had an amazing teacher that let the children to write their own books during the classes, the language classes, and that was it. So it reminded me my Jabu, my professor of physical education, because it makes sense to the students too. They have time to write, and they have time to don't know how to use this time. They have time to write and erase it and throw it all and begin again. Because the job of the teacher is to create this environment, create this this environment where freedom is allowed.
Yeah.
So when I see that, I began a project which was called First Book, because I want to take this idea and to deliver to more students. And in Brazil, the public schools are so much worse than private ones. The gap is huge. So I love to go to places that education really don't. And it makes a lot of sense, and it was a lot of work too. And then technology now. Well, it is a lot of work to help students write their own books. How can we do it in an efficient way? Then, Letrus.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where it came from.
Yes.
And you were in like Campinas, or where were you when that idea hatched?
Campinas, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Talk us through like the very moment where like the light bulb went off and you saw something there that hadn't existed before.
Because I was doing two projects. One in northeast of Brazil, Alagoas, with 4 public schools, and in São Paulo with centers of juveniles offenders. I don't know what's
Yeah,
they committed some.
That's correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
or they traffic drugs, or they robbery, and then they are inside jails. And this two experience for me was astonishing, because they wanted to write, they wanted to create, and it was so hard to. Back then it was about 300 students, and I was trying to follow up, to write, to make comments on their books, and it is so hard. It's so much bigger than my hands, and technology can help it. Technology can identify patterns that students should know. That teachers don't need to talk about this stuff. Teachers should be on a strategic position inside classroom, and I know technology can help them too.
And so with that, Letrus was born. And give us a sense just of 1 or 2 data points. I know you're in, I think, over 100 schools now. Almost. And like, what's the results? You know, what is it like? Really simply, what's happening for students that are getting on Letrus?
As a nation, Brazil doesn't get its own identity, and it reflects on written skills. So if there is a type of text that you should write on, most of students don't know how to do it. So they this is what you should do, and this is what most students are doing. And technology can see this and can tell them as they write. So not about spelling mistakes and grammar, but the use of words. So if you on this game, so that is what we are realizing now. There's so to language.
Actually, try and fast forward 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Paint the picture of where Letrus is. Where that's a good start.
I think we can go on national scale. I don't think in 5 years we are going to be abroad. And we can assess writing skills that our government can't. So I know for sure that we can assess. We have a type of text, we have a huge number of students, and we can assess them really fast. And we can tell the teacher which students need to know. And if we can do this on scale, so we can understand the patterns of the written skills of our students. And I think Letrus can help that.
Nice. And I mean, in a country like Brazil, where I think it's about 8% of adults are proficient in literacy, what does that mean? If you are national and you are reaching, the country, what does that mean for a country like Brazil?
It means that we can choose wisely, I think. I like the word the limits of my words. No, the limits of my language or the limits of my words. Because if you don't know the structure and the language, I'm not talking about writing skills, but photography is a language, movie making is a language, music is a language, and everything that helps us understand ourselves better makes us to take decisions wisely. So I'm saying that Brazil as a nation persists on taking decisions that are not wise. So but I really think so. We have a lot of problems, and we have a lot of common problems here in the U.S. I think we are an immigrant country. Part of them came because they wanted to escape from somewhere, but part of them came because they were enslaved. In Brazil, it's just like this. We share this karma, this guilty, that not considering a human being as a human being through slavery. We share the same karma with our native Indians, just like we came to a new country and we didn't realize that there were people, there were humans living here. We share these same karmas. But Brazil, I think it doesn't have a controlling and management that here in US you guys have. So we are on huddle thinking how to make it better for tomorrow. This is so nice to participate in here in America, because in Brazil there was a huddle, but on the next day probably it will be the same. So you guys have a conscience to make it better. And I think because you are more conscious about the language you use, you have more tools to understand each other.
I mean, I would argue that's exactly what you're doing with Letrus.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You literally are looking at the problems in front of you and trying to solve them every day.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So with that, I think we can close out, and I just say a massive, massive thanks. It is an honor to share the stage